Right now, Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin. Senator Johnson, I don't know if you've been watching this, but where do you stand on the airstrikes? Where do you stand on boots on the ground, on special ops? What do you think? And I'm talking about Syria, obviously, here as well as Iraq, sir.
Well, I was listening to you earlier, Chris, and let me tell you, I'm in no rush for war. There's no bloodlust in my heart. I'm just trying to recognize the reality of the situation and understand that I take my responsibility as a United States Senator very seriously, first and foremost, to protect Americans. And if you look at the reality of the situation, I was asking Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Brett McGurk in a Foreign Relations Committee hearing to describe the threat that ISIS poses to America. He did a pretty good job. He said, listen, ISIS is funneling 30 to 50 suicide bombers into Iraq per month. They're recruiting off the internet very effectively. That same week that he testified, there was an Australian and a German suicide bomber set themselves off in Baghdad. We've seen the first American suicide bomber in Syria travel back to Florida before he blew up himself back up, returned to Syria and blew himself up in Syria in May. And so what Mr. McGurk was talking about is ISIS can easily funnel those 30 to 50 suicide bombers back into the West, back into America. And so that's a threat. I agree with the president that we face a threat. And now we have to take a look at, what is the stated objective? What's the goal? And is President Obama putting together a strategy to achieve that goal? And I've got some real serious concerns across the board. I need more information. But again, there's no bloodlust or rush to war from my standpoint.
Well, let me
I just
ask
take
you
the responsibility very
about
seriously.
Strategy. What would be if attacking ISIS led to the first beheadings? And I assume if you say they're going to send some people over here, if you have intelligence to that effect, we'll hit them even harder over there. Let's face it, there'll be reactions and reactions back and forth. How do we end it? I mean, certainly they can hit us here with suicide bombings. No one can ever stop a suicide bomb. Even the Israelis can't do it. They continue with that. If they do that, that would be to ignite our further military attack on them in Syria, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be the purpose of it? Why else would they hit us here, except to get us to hit them back?
Chris, one of my concerns is if we don't destroy them, it's like having a hornet's nest in your backyard. Recognize, hey, that's a danger to my kids. I got to get rid of it. But instead, what we're going to do is poke them with a stick for 3 years.
That's what I'm asking about. That's what bugs me.
That concerns me.
So what do we do to kill the nest?
Well, you have to be realistic. So President Obama's already got us into that war. Now, but tell you what, it's not his fault, though. These are evil, despicable. They're just, you can't imagine what they're doing to people. We sanitize situation. We talk about the fact they enslave women. The fighters that took over Mosul Dam found two women bound naked. They'd been repeatedly raped. Okay, that is a spoil of war. So these are barbarians. I don't see how you contain them, how you can negotiate with them. And when they represent a threat, and I agree with the President, they represent a threat to Americans and America, you've got to deal with that situation. So I don't disagree with what President Obama's trying to do here. In terms of getting a coalition of the willing, go ahead.
Okay, fine. I don't want to interrupt you, but should we vote? Should the United States Senate vote on the air attack, the part you support?
Absolutely. We should have a robust discussion, debate. We need a lot more information. We need to be realistic. We got to be forthright to the American public. And that's right now my concern about President Obama's speech.
About voting. Let's vote.
We've got to have a debate on this thing. And President Obama and Congress has got to be honest with the American public. If the objective is to destroy ISIS, I don't think we have a strategy in place that will accomplish that goal. And again, I'm just concerned about poking that hornet's nest with a stick for 3 years. By the
way, the public agrees. The 2/3 of our poll at NBC Wall Street Journal says they roughly support the president with his air campaign, et cetera, and training the Free Syrian Army. But they don't think it'll work. And that is one heck of a conflict. Why support something you don't believe is going to work? Anyway, it's a conflict we're all involved in, sir.
It's why we need a robust debate. Thanks.
Thank you. Please come on again. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin.